Hey, Waffle. Sure a nice day out here. I think spring might be coming. Let's take the car to the car wash. We need to get all that salt and grime off those rims so we can put our summer rims on. And away we go. We're back from the car wash and ready to swap our rims. But first, we need to take care of a couple safety items. First, we're going to set the e-brake. And then we're going to place some wheel chocks. Now that the car won't roll away, we're going to first loosen the lug bolts before we jack it up. Once the car is in the air, it can be sometimes hard to loosen these off because the wheel will want to spin unless it's actually where the e-brake is grabbing. So we're going to use this bar here with a 17 mil socket to loosen these up. On the chance that you have a security head on one of these, I don't, but if you do, look in your trunk. BMWs do have a little toolkit there, which is where you will find it. Good chance it's there on other vehicles as well. So let's loosen these off and then pull in the jack. Now there are two options for jacking. You can jack centrally from either the front or rear subframe, or you can jack from one of four corners on the car. We're going to be using the four corners. It's a little easier to access. When you're jacking from the corners, you'll look underneath for a pad. So right here, there's a square pad, which we'll place the jack under and lift this corner of the car. Now with the car in the air, we want to make sure nothing goes underneath. We don't want to lose any fingers or break any bones. The next part is we're going to remove the lug bolts. We're going to use a small impact gun to make it a little quicker, but if you don't have one, feel free just to use a ratchet. So with a little bit of corrosion, the alloy rims like to bond to the steel hubs. So even though all our bolts are removed, these wheels are still stuck on there pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the summer rims and give it a little bit of a bump to get it off. This is the back of our summer rim, and before we put it on, what we're going to do is take some anti-sieze Loctite, and we're going to put a very thin smear of it on where the rim makes contact with the hub. That should make removal next time a little easier. This time it was a pretty soft bump to get the winter tire off, so that shows that it's working. So we'll do a light smear on that. We'll also check, make sure there's no bends or leaks in this general area. Then we'll do what we can to line up these holes and get it back on and put in some bolts. Our summer rims on, we're going to put in the bolts by hand, and then we'll snug them up with the impact gun. So the torque gun I'm using is pretty small. I know that the torque on this gun is less than the required torque on these bolts. So that's why I'm safe using it. If you're using something a little bigger or your wheels have a lower spec, you might want to be very careful about that. And again, using a ratchet rather than an impact gun. This does save a lot of time though. The other thing was we did start these by hand. That's primarily if you try and do it with a with the impact gun, it's really easy to cross thread and wreck threads. So always do that by hand and be very careful with the torque that your gun puts out. You don't want to strip a hub or wreck a bolt and then have to deal with the repair bills associated with that. With our wheel firmly attached, we'll lower the car back down and then tighten our lug nuts to their final torque. We have our torque wrench set to the factory specified 85 foot-pounds. So we'll go around our bolts on a diagonal pattern and make sure they all meet spec. Now let's move on to the next wheel, and we'll come back to this for air pressures and a final torquing just to check it later on when we're done the other tires. We've now swapped all 4 tires, during which you may have noticed some painter's tape on each rim. This is so I know which tire goes where and where it came from year to year as I'm swapping tires. Tires do have directionality, and the manufacturer also recommends rotating them around from corner to corner so you get even tire wear. So respecting directionality and the manufacturer's rotation requirements, I do label them to keep track of that. So now that we do have them all changed, we're going to torque the bolts one last time to make sure there's nothing loose, and then do the tire pressures on all 4 tires. They have been sitting all winter, and so we want to make sure there's been no fluctuations or small leaks during that time. And that's all 4 tires changed and ready to go for the summer. The eagle-eyed among you would have noticed the green caps on my rims, meaning nitrogen filled, and that I'm putting regular air in. A couple pounds won't hurt. Your shop will likely top them off for free if you prefer to do that, but you should still check them even before you go to the shop in case you do have a flat. In that case, fill it up with regular air and let your shop know. The other important note is after you've driven around for 50 or so kilometers, check the torque one last time. It has been known that wheels can come loose. I've seen it twice where they do come loose after a period of time. So do make sure you retorque them after a couple kilometers. And with that, it's time to hit the road.